Welcome everyone to Child Care Connection's 6th annual Early Childhood Luncheon. I hope you can all hear me. My name is Sarah Urbanik. I am the Executive Director for the OP and W.E. Edwards Foundation based in Red Lodge, Montana. I'll be your MC for today, but first I want to tell you that I have been working with kids and families for over 25 years, and the programs like Child Care Connection in all the states that I have lived and worked have been the lifeblood of support for the kind of work that we do as childcare providers. And this is in all states from Alaska to Wyoming to Utah, Maine, and even back to Montana. So I can't tell you how grateful I am to be a part of today's luncheon. And thanks to Child Care Connections for all that you do. So this program today will be recorded and shared with you after the event. And I hope you have all received your luncheon boxes from Child Care Connections. Some of you may have received them in the mail or your email, but if you haven't opened it yet, you should. And look inside, you'll have the event program, a DoorDash gift certificate card for lunch, a special thank you from local children. And there are a few other treats just to say thanks for being here today and engaged in the conversation about early childhood in your community. You know, if you can't use the DoorDash gift card in your area or you don't want to use it, feel free to pass it on to someone who can use it. And think about sharing some of the information from your packet with that so that you can help expand the knowledge of what Child Care Connections does to support early childhood in your area. Well, childcare has a tremendous impact on nearly all aspects of our communities now and in the future. As you're going to hear throughout today's program, you're impacted by childcare, whether you have young children or not. Essential to our workforce, a strong early childhood sector is directly linked to the economic success of your community. Yet there's gaps in the early childhood system, and those must be addressed. During today's event, you'll hear from the Child Care Connection staff, board, and members of the community who will share with you their journeys throughout early childhood. It's our hope that this event will inspire you to support early childhood and invest in the critical services that Child Care Connections offers to your community. We invite you to contribute in support of Child Care Connections work at any time during the event, using the information on your screen. I hope you can all see that. Okay, so we're gonna just jump in and start things off. So I hope you sit back and enjoy your lunch, the time here today, and the Voices of Childcare, a brief video presentation.
If you're happy and you know, and your face on so if you're happy and you know, clap your hands. If McDonald's had a farm, E-I-E-I-O, and on that farm we had E-I-E-I-O. With us. Oh,
Oh my goodness. Aren't those little voices just so inspirational? It just fills your heart with so much joy. Our next speaker for you today is Tori Sproles, the Executive Director of Child Care Connections. Tori has been with Child Care Connections for quite some time and in the position of Executive Director for 1 year. Please join me in welcoming Tori as she talks about the current state of early childhood and what's next for Child Care Connections.
My name is Tori Sproles, and I'm the Executive Director of Child Care Connections. Today, we're talking about early childhood in our community and taking time to recognize the gaps. These gaps impact children, families, and even the community as a whole. Examples are high cost of care, costing more than college tuition, lack of safe, quality, legal childcare, with shortages in our area of over 50%, low industry wage, with the average childcare provider's wage around $11 an hour, lack of community and employer support, forcing working parents out of the workforce. I've experienced these gaps firsthand. Ever since I was a little girl, I knew I wanted to be a mom. I loved being around children and always felt there was something unique and special about early childhood. I told my mom that someday I wanted a really big family that included twins. And guess what? In September of 2015, I was blessed with a healthy set of twins, 1 boy and 1 girl. Now the real adventure began. At this time, I had been working at Child Care Connections for 3 years and knew that finding childcare was a challenge, but I quickly realized that finding a space for 2 infants was almost impossible. We fell into one of the early childhood gaps. As an employee of CCC, I was able to bring the babies to work with me for 6 months. Due to the challenging nature of infancy, I was not successful with 2 babies in the office. I approached the director of CCC with a plan to ensure my work responsibilities were being met and my children had suitable care. The plan was to work from home with the twins 2 days a week, and I secured a nanny for the other 3 days to allow time in the office. I was granted this accommodation and began the juggling act of working at home with infants. Surprisingly, this went very well, and I was able to meet all the obligations of my position. At this point, I was able to dodge an early childhood gap and stay in the workforce. Still on waitlists for childcare, I began to wonder if I would ever find placement. Then one day, a miracle happened. There were 2 openings in the childcare program in Bozeman, and the twins could start in August of 2016. They were 11 months old. I enrolled the twins into childcare for 4 days per week. I was very excited because I loved being a working mom and wanted my children to get the best care. Unfortunately, with any type of childcare, there comes expense. I started to realize that working full-time with 2 babies in care full-time was not adding up financially. Due to the low income limits for state subsidies, I was not able to get any support. I knew that I loved my children, but I also knew that I loved my career, so I needed to weigh my options. I had just graduated earlier that year in May of 2016 with a master's degree in early childhood, which enabled me to teach courses for Montana State University system. So, in order to afford childcare and provide for the family, I started teaching college courses for UM Western and Montana State University. I was now working the equivalent of 2 jobs. My husband was self-employed and was away a lot, so I was pretty much a single mom with 2 children and 2 jobs. We had fallen into another early childhood gap. Fast forward to fall of 2018, when I found out that I was pregnant with my youngest son. Again, I panicked. Our childcare provider at the time was the first person to know that I was expecting because I had to get on the wait list for an infant spot. My son was due in January 2019, and he was unable to enter childcare until January of 2020. Again, I feared we were falling back into the gap with a lack of childcare. Luckily, 1 baby at the office was a little easier than 2. A little over 1 month before my son was due to start in childcare, I was informed that our childcare program was closing. You can imagine my feelings at this point. I had 3 children in childcare that I needed to find care for, 2 preschoolers and 1 infant. I spent 2 months searching, making phone calls, weighing my options, and feeling defeated. I enrolled my children into a program and began the transition, but then my gut told me it was not the right fit for our family. So I pulled them out without any other option in sight. I called all the childcare providers in and around Bozeman and asked if they had space for my children. After 2 months of searching, I happened to stumble upon a Bozeman-based childcare that was planning to expand from a family childcare program to a group childcare program, and they had openings for all 3 children. My prayers were answered. Now the twins are in 1st grade, and my youngest son is 3 years old and is still attending the same childcare program. I share my story with you today because without childcare and the various supports throughout the past 7 years, I wouldn't be where I am today. My story is a good example of the innovative approaches we at Child Care Connections are taking to address the issues of childcare. We are collaborating with businesses to encourage employer-supported childcare, which includes family-friendly practices like bringing an infant to work, providing subsidies to help families pay for childcare, and creating on-site childcare for their employees. We are raising funds to institute GAP scholarships that help families who do not qualify for state subsidy to obtain and retain work while raising young children. We provide a safe place for families to receive support and resources for anything they may need while they navigate parenthood. We are working to build a bridge to keep not just low-income families, but all families supported and out of the gaps. When I think about bridging the gap in early childhood, I see the bridge as a symbol of hope that if we can help families get over the bridge, they will find themselves in a better place on the other side. By being here today and supporting the work of Child Care Connections, you are a part of the bridge, and it is our hope that you will bring what you hear today to others in the community, ensuring all families successfully reach the other side. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori. That's so inspiring. I can't wait to see how we can all work together to bridge this gap and overcome these gaps. So we have a keynote speaker for you today, Jackie Haynes. Jackie is the Executive Director of the Northern Rocky Mountain Economic Development District. With a master's degree in economics, Jackie brings her education and experience to the table, leading the Child Task Force, advocating for change in Montana's early childhood system, and finding solutions alongside other community leaders. Jackie?
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Jackie Haynes. I'm the Executive Director of Northern Rocky Mountain Economic Development District. We are a nonprofit organization that serves Gallatin and Park counties, and we do primarily economic and community development. My background is in economics. So I moved to Bozeman in 2005, and I've been here since working in the community. And I got my master's in economics from MSU. And so that lens of perspective will weave its way through the rest of this presentation. And so let's kick it off here. The first thing that I wanted to talk about was typically there are 3 dimensions of childcare that economists think about. So the first is cost. Costs can vary wildly across childcare dependent upon the age of the child, the location of the business, the licensing requirements, and just overall cost of living in the region. One thing I think that is a little shared statistic is childcare is as costly as a college education. In 2019, Montana, the average annual cost of infant-based childcare was 131% of the cost of tuition and fees at a 4-year college in Montana. And then center-based infant care in 2019 was 15.6% of the state median income, where you contrast that to affordability, and that affordability measure, they say it's about 7% of your median of the income to be considered affordable. The second dimension that economists consider is quantity. So how many slots are available, what types of slots are available in each community. And then the third dimension is quality. So quality, a lot of research shows that quality of childcare is highly linked to a child's development. A lot of the pioneering research that has been done around quality of childcare is actually in relation to Head Start and the quality of education that Head Start provides to children. Typically, there's two types of variables that economists consider when thinking about quality. So the first is the intangible variables linked to the child's experience. So do they have interactions of empathy? What types of variety of materials and experiences are they exposed to? Things like that. And then the second is structural measures. So the ratios, teacher to child ratios, group size, provider education and licensing, et cetera. So now let's pivot into talking about the economic impacts of childcare. Childcare is an industry that enables all other industries. It has been likened to infrastructure. So when you think about traditional infrastructure, which is water, sewer, roads and bridges, things like that, research has showed that investment in childcare, when compared to infrastructure, actually yields twice as many jobs and job creation as investment in infrastructure would yield. When we look at a global perspective, so OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, is a global research think tank, and they evaluate many different initiatives across countries in the world. And they found that the US actually spends the least and invests the least amount of public funds in childcare as a percentage of GDP. So this puts us in rankings similar to Turkey, Cyprus, and Romania in what the US is investing in childcare publicly. And all other OECD countries in the world offer nationwide maternity leave, and 50% of those countries offer paternity leave to fathers. And so this is just a snapshot of really how behind the US is in what we're investing publicly into childcare. Childcare contributes to the economy in two different ways. The first is directly as an industry of itself that have businesses and job creation. And then the second is indirectly. So childcare enables labor force participation across the economy. And then the second thing childcare also does is it helps to enhance the level of education that our workforce has by providing care when parents need to pursue education to continue their career or training experiences, things like that. And so there are the direct and indirect impacts of childcare that we should consider. So let's first consider childcare as a business industry in and of itself. Many businesses are sole proprietors. In the first quarter of 2020, Montana had 506 establishments employing 3,000 individuals with an average annual wage of $20,000. So that was a 2021 number. So low wages to childcare workers, but that gives you a picture of what the industry looks like across Montana. Home-based care is found to be the most affordable, but this is frequently limited by HOA regulations. So a developer is the first person to stand up those HOA regulations, and they can limit what's allowed in a neighborhood. There's evidence showing that there's been a decline in home-based care, and some of the studies show that that's due to the cost of care outpacing the subsidy growth. And then there's an aging of the workforce. So as boomers retire, we see an acceleration in the loss of sole proprietor businesses, things like that. There's really high costs associated to meeting health and safety regulations, and then also providers seeking higher paying employment elsewhere. So let's think about how childcare contributes to labor force participation rate. And the first thing that's important to understand is, what is labor force participation? So labor force participation is a statistic that economists use to look at of the entire population age 16 through 65 that's available to work. What are the percentage of those people that are working? And so when people are considered working, this actually includes employment and unemployment numbers. The unemployment statistic only considers those who are looking for work and not those who have stopped looking for work and maybe have dropped out of the labor force. So we see this a lot during COVID, where women have dropped out of the labor force, aren't necessarily looking for employment because they're staying at home to take care of their children. And so there's typically 5 reasons why individuals don't participate in the labor force. The first is that they're retired. The second is they're in school. The third is they might be facing a disability or illness of some kind. Fourth is they're caring for family. And the fifth is a general other category. Sometimes can include lack of transportation to get to the workforce, things like that. So labor force participation rate in our current economy is a better gauge to consider our workforce and analyze our workforce, because it tells us who's not working, and then we can look at why they aren't working, and can businesses and our community provide supports to help people continue working or go back to work. The other thing to think about when we think about labor force participation rate too is how much people are working. So there is a thing called an underemployed person. So they may be available to work 40 hours and are working less than that. And so labor force participation rate contributes to the overall workforce availability that's in a region. It contributes to household earnings. If you have dual income household versus a single income household, and it contributes to the total economic output of the region. So childcare drastically impacts labor force participation rates, and this graph is a good example of that. You can see the likelihood that a mother participates in the labor force increases with the age of the youngest child. So mothers with an infant are the least likely to participate in the workforce. They participate at 58.5%. And this is a nationwide statistic, so this is not specific to Montana. The rate rises for women that have children under the age of 3, and then it rises more for mothers. It rises for mothers that have children under 6. And then when mothers have children of the school age, so 16 through 17, that is the highest labor force participation rate we see. And if you average all these together, you get this black dotted line here of the average labor force participation rate for women. When we consider this nationally, the national statistic for 2020, which was the last one I calculated, it hovers around 60%. And so again, this is nationally. We could break this down by county, look at this by county, and do a deeper analysis, but that's for another time. So, and why is this important for women, for mothers? Childcare access drastically impacts labor supply. There's a lot of research that shows that labor force participation rates for women does increase when they have access to paid childcare. There's research that shows that women use a larger amount of hours if they have access. It also shows that their wages increase. When women don't have to take time out of the labor force, they can stay in, they can keep their skills updated, their wages go up. The second is that women with access to paid childcare tend to have a higher level of education. They can pursue that education because their child is being taken care of while they're doing that. Labor force participation rates are also significantly associated with gross domestic product growth. So as we have women participating in the labor force, we see a stronger GDP in the region and nationally. And then it also impacts birth rates. If mothers feel that they can't get access to paid childcare, we see there is a correlation in birth rates. So birth rates do decline in areas that have lesser or more limited access. So why does this affect fathers? There's research that shows that fathers that spend more time with their children help to improve their child's social, cognitive, emotional development. Fathers themselves report that they have greater life satisfaction when they're more involved with their children. When a female in the household can be employed, that is also highly correlated to reducing a family's risk of poverty. And so it's important, this is a father's issue too. And why is it a children's issue? There's research that shows that the brain is rapidly developing between age 0 to 5. It develops more rapidly at this point in your age development than at any other time in your life. And 90% of brain growth happens before kindergarten. And so investments in early childhood education are really significant. And we need to think about taking this education seriously, because research shows that it really impacts children. In addition to the development of the child, it actually impacts society also. And so if you have quality childhood education, it improves the child's vocabulary, their language skills, their math and social skills. They have more positive relationships with their classmate, and they score higher on school readiness assessments. And if a children, and there's research that shows if a child enters school ready to be in school, they're more likely to be reading by age 3 or 3rd grade. And that reduces the remedial costs of education to get children up to a reading level at 3rd grade. And if children are reading by 3rd grade, they're more likely to graduate high school. If they're more likely to graduate high school, children are more likely to pursue higher education. Higher education leads to more productive members of society, higher wages, which leads to more government revenue. When you can tax income on wages that are higher, you get more revenue to the government. And businesses benefit from a highly educated workforce. Education helps increase the productivity of the worker, and businesses benefit directly from this too. So there's a lot of direct impacts to the child, but also indirect and long-term benefits to society that happen when we invest in quality early childhood education. And so why is this an everyone else issue? If you don't have children, why is this your issue? There is research that shows that quality childcare in the early years leads to huge benefits of society. It's estimated that for every dollar invested in early childhood education, it yields up to a $16 return. This increases high school graduation, increases college matriculation, increases personal income, and then decreases the negative impacts on society. So it decreases spending on remedial education, it decreases an individual's dependence on social welfare systems, it decreases crime-related costs, and it decreases incarceration rates. And so this should absolutely be an issue that all of us are thinking about and advocating for. A Nobel Prize winning economist named James Heckman, he developed this, this model, the returns to a dollar invested. And so you can see here along this curve, he demonstrates that for every dollar invested in education, you have higher returns at 0 to 3, and then lower returns here when you're investing in job training, things like that after the individual has left schooling. And so it's important to consider that our investment in early child care education has the largest and most drastic impacts to our society. So now, what can you do? You're fired up about this issue and you want to do something about it. So this is a spread the word. This is an everyone issue. Tell your friends that it matters. It impacts society to be investing in early childhood education. It's not just a mom's issue. It's not just a family's issue. It's all of us. Help support programs, initiatives, and even policies at the state level that are helping to advance affordability, access, and quality childcare. And if you're a business, please feel free to engage with us. We have been developing ways that businesses can start to tackle childcare too, whether it's looking at family-friendly practices or considering supporting access for your workforce to access childcare through reserving slots or a little bit of a cost offset as part of a workforce benefit, or even providing on-site childcare. So I just want to thank you all so much for listening to my presentation today. If you'd like, my contact information is at the bottom of the slide here, and I'm happy to hear from you and answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Jackie. That was wonderful. So from the beginning of the presentation, where we had the children singing and smiling and sharing their joy with us, to Jackie's presentation, I think, I just want to encourage you all to just take a breath. for a moment and think about what has resonated with you so far, and just embrace the hope for the future that we all have the opportunity to be a part of, impacting early childhood care and education in our communities. So we're really lucky today to have a story to share from Lauren Miller. Lauren is the mother of an 11-month-old baby girl living in Park County. She is a recipient of Child Care Connections New Gap Child Care Scholarship. She's going to share her story with us today in hopes that others will help support this vital program. Here's Lauren's story.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm a resident of Park County, and I have an infant, Amelie, who is now 11 months old. And I am a recipient of the GAP Child Care Scholarship. And one of the reasons that I applied for it is that once we had access to childcare, we were doing 3 days a week, but it wasn't sufficient enough that we could commit to our full-time jobs. It was causing a lot of stress at home, trying to figure out who could take her on Mondays and Fridays. And so this opportunity presented itself, and we applied to be able to afford 4 days of daycare. And we received the scholarship, and we were able to access a 4th day of daycare, so it all aligned. In addition to the affordability of childcare, another challenge we have faced is it did take about 6 months before there was that 4th day available. So we only had childcare about 24 hours a week, which did impact our commitments to our jobs, our opportunities for promotions and trainings. My husband's also a small business owner, and he's trying to grow his business. And through these unprecedented times, it's been really difficult, and he's needed to commit more hours to it so that we could find some more financial stability and be able to afford childcare. In terms of having access to childcare, especially having 4 days a week, it's helped us find a better work-life balance. We're not juggling trying to finish work while overseeing an infant. It provides more consistency for our child, which is great. She has a lot of structure. We know she's safe. She comes home and she's tired, and we have her routine and go to bed, and she sleeps well through the night. Without that structure and consistency, it had been very challenging. We were lacking a lot of sleep, which impacted our jobs, and so the 4 days a week has really helped us. In terms of other impacts, I would say my husband's been able to commit to his small business and have more flexibility for his clients, expand his client base, and commit to more than 3 days a week now, which is essential to grow a business. In terms of what we appreciate, I would say the process was easy. It was straightforward. We weren't put as a middle person. Sometimes when you're seeking out financial aid or scholarships, it takes so much work, and you end up being a middle person managing a lot of the processes. But the folks went straight to the daycare. They took care of everything, called us, let us know it was all set up. It was easy. It didn't add stress. It just helps us a lot. And then in terms of how it could be meaningful or helpful to other families, a lot of the daycares aren't drop-in. You are committed to the number of days, whether it's 3, 4, or 5, for an entire school year. And that can be really daunting in terms of a financial burden. This scholarship allowed us to explore 4 days a week, which we weren't sure if we could afford. And then with the 4 days a week, realize the benefits. We're restructuring some of our finances. My husband's able to work more, and we are going to be pursuing 4 days in the future. So I think it'll give people the opportunity to try out daycare if they can get it more full time, and so that they can have that work-life balance. They can focus on their careers. They can have those career opportunities that would lead to financial stability. And so in terms of family, financial, work-life balance, like stress levels, those are very much relieved having 4 days a week. And that's really much, I attribute that to the scholarship for us exploring that opportunity. And I think we just really appreciate that this exists. We hope it exists and expands into the future to help other families, because childcare costs are pretty daunting. And it really provides an opportunity to have us be more present with our child when she is home, and then have her safe and in a great developmental program when we're working and we know she's being taken care of. So thank you so much.
What a heartfelt testimony from Lauren. Thank you so much for sharing your story. So as you can see, working parents truly face so very many challenges around childcare, and it affects their personal life and their goals for having a family and raising them in this area. We have another family who is going to talk with us today. This is Jessica Sullivan. She is also benefiting from the new GAP scholarship program. And let's hear what Jessica has to tell us.
Hi there, my name is Jessica Sullivan, and I am a recipient of the GAP scholarship this fall of 2022. I have a 3-year-old and a now 6-year-old as of today, boys that attend Montessori Island School. I'm a teacher here in Livingston, and really I found out about the GAP scholarship through my school district. Actually, they pushed it out for us. I have looked through scholarships in the past and never qualified because I made just barely enough money and things like that. So the GAP scholarship was perfect. As a school teacher, and then now my ex-husband is a tow truck driver. Childcare has always kind of been a little difficult. And so just being working families, and then now we're living 2 separate households, and that was new this summer and things like that. This year was really nerve-wracking for me. I couldn't not come back to school, and I still needed to be able to provide for my kids. So being able to just start the school year, not having to think about the cost necessarily as much for the boys, really relieved a lot of my stress financially. Going through a divorce, working, having to go back to school for the school year and things like that for my kids, it relieved a huge stress, really a huge stress. So yeah, I applied for the scholarship just to help financially through that process. And it really relieved a lot for my family. I didn't have to worry about what my ex could provide for me as we're still through that process. And I was able to make sure that the boys could still attend the amazing school that they go to. Something I really appreciate about the program was just the easiness of it. You know, there's plenty of like applications for any sort of benefit in the state, the community, wherever, and the process in applying for this GAP scholarship was not stressful at all. It was easy for me to fill out, so I wasn't bogged down for hours actually trying to apply for it, which I feel like is where lots of families get so frustrated and overwhelmed that they can't apply for these benefits just because of, could be even just knowledge and ability or
Okay, well, it looks like Jessica's video has come to an end. And I don't know about you, but it's always amazing to me to hear from families about what it's like to navigate childcare right now. Having been a family that has been in the GAP before, I can certainly feel with these families what they have been going through. And I appreciate their speaking with us today. As we start to wrap up our program, we're going to hear from Dean Williamson, who is the Economic Development Director at HRDC and a Child Care Connections board member. Dean, let's have your speech.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dean Williamson. I work at HRDC in Bozeman and Livingston, and I am a very proud member of the Board of Directors of Childcare Connections. And I've been asked here today to ask for your support, and I promise I will do that, but in just a second. I'd like to tell a little story that may really be only of interest to me, and I promise, after sitting through Jackie's brilliant presentation, I don't have any stats or numbers or maybe even any facts, but it is something that I think illustrates why I'm interested in childcare. Many years ago, totally different lifetime, I was a teacher at Bozeman High. I was an English teacher, and I really loved that job. I got to work with some extraordinarily talented young people. And those young people are now my attorney. They're advisors of mine. They're a doctor of mine. They're even an executive director of a very well-known child care nonprofit that you may be familiar with. And I mentioned this because I remember in those teaching days, those young people could get really, shall we say, energetic. I often think that bananas or bonkers is a better word to describe most of those days. But I also remember distinctly reminding myself that it was important that I engaged with those folks, because one day they were going to be my attorney or my doctor or my advisor or an executive director of a nonprofit. They were going to be my neighbors. They were going to be this community. And for me, that day is right now. This is not really supposed to be a feel-good story. This is just how our society evolves and grows. And so when I think, why childcare is important to me, and this is coming from somebody who doesn't have any children, I think childcare is important because I care about the adults who are going to be the future of our community. They are going to be the reason this community thrives, or it doesn't. And we have a chance here with Childcare Connections to do our part to make sure that we have a terrific future. And so now's the time when I come and ask for your support. I'm supposed to here ask for action. And that takes a lot of different forms. If you're into volunteering, we've got volunteer spots for you. If you are in the position to donate finances, I'm sure Tori would take as much as you are comfortable giving. If you can call your elected representatives in Helena, we would love to have them know how important that childcare is in this community. Because really, when it comes down to it, we're all in this together. And I really hope that you'll join all of us at Childcare Connections as we work together to build a very bright future. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dean. I really appreciate everything that you had to say. And I do know that the folks at Childcare Connections are going to be able to help any of you with what you need. If you need to speak to the legislators and you need to know what to say, they will help you with that, as well as the other calls to action that Dean mentioned. So as we close our program today, I'm thinking about everything we just heard and learned. Early childhood is essential to our communities, and it does have a seat at the table. Our hope is that you're feeling inspired, hopeful, and ready to help write the next chapter for early childhood in our community, in your community. Thanks to everyone who shared with us today. I hear someone saying, sign me up. I love it. If you haven't yet, I hope you'll join me in investing in Childcare Connections work. So in a second here, you're going to see that you can make a contribution at any time through cccmontana.org or participate in the silent auction. The auction is taking place online starting today and will close on November 30th. So, with the holidays just around the corner, the auction is a great way to get gifts or a little something for yourself. That's always fun. while supporting a good cause. This is a fun way to support Child Care Connections work, and all the proceeds are going to go directly to the services that help build healthy children, successful families, and a stronger community. And I'm going to tell you that I asked before this call started where we were at with our fundraising goal. And it looks like we are about $4,000 away from meeting the expectation of the group with the fundraiser. And with that level of giving, they would be able to provide 7 families with 3 months worth of scholarships through this GAP program, scholarship program. So I really want you to think about digging deep and helping support Child Care Connections and this GAP scholarship. Because as you heard, the 2 families that were represented here today, it made a significant impact in their life and therefore their community. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me today. But just by showing up, you're making a difference in early childhood. And as we prepare to close the program, we again want to thank this year's sponsors for their support that made this event possible. I think we're going to have a slide here that's going to show us all of those great sponsors. And it's coming right up. Please make sure that when you see these folks, talk to these folks, that you let them know that it means a lot to you that they are supporting this work. You can also find it in your lunchbox program materials as well. And here in a moment, we're going to have Tori join us again to lead a question and answer session. So you're welcome to put any questions that you might have in the chat box. And Tori's going to be here for as long as you need her to be here to help answer questions. And so Tori, I'm going to invite you to join us for the Q&A.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you all again for attending. This was such a great turnout and it's been great seeing all of you. So I'm here to answer any questions you might have. And so I'll just kind of see what happens here. Feel free to oh, go ahead.
This is Sue Stevens, and I was wondering if you could send me an email with an address where I can send a donation to you guys.
Yes, I can go ahead and put in an address in the chat as well, if that's helpful.
Oh, that'd be very helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone else have any questions?
Oh, Tori, this is Jane. I have a question.
Yeah.
Hey, so I saw in the local news that Governor Gianforte had changed some licensing regulations to allow more children into each child. What are those new licensing ratios, and are you guys looking at the next legislative session to maybe get those old numbers back for best practices? Where are you guys at?
Thanks for the question, Jane. Yes, so obviously most of you probably saw that announcement from Gianforte a couple weeks ago about the new licensing package. The licensing rule package has been completely rewritten. For those of you who are even familiar at all with the licensing package, it is completely revamped. There are several new rules, and one includes a ratio increase for 5-year-olds. So last legislative session in 2021, there was a ratio increase for family and group childcare, which did pass. And now they're looking to increase ratios for 5-year-olds. And to answer your question, Jane, yes, there is some conversation happening around ratios, best practices, and hopefully getting those ratios decreased again. And I know that the Montana Advocates for Children are really working on some initiatives and priorities focused on that.
And do you mind sending me your new infographic then on what you guys are looking at for your legislative session? And I'll maybe try to help.
Absolutely.
Pass it along. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Tori, we have a question in the comments asking if there will be an opportunity for Helena residents to receive the GAP scholarship, and that came from Jesse.
We are hoping so. We continue to look for funding opportunities in the Helena area. Unfortunately, we have been unsuccessful thus far with some of our asks in that area. However, any of the general dollars that we raise today or in the future for general GAP scholarship help will expand to all counties. And because there are some GAP scholarships specific to Gallatin County right now and Park County, we will definitely put some emphasis on our Helena area. Absolutely. So if you know of any foundations or anybody who is interested in moving this needle, we would definitely like to hear that, because we would love to expand some more to our Helena area.
Awesome. We also have a follow-up question with that. Can you provide an overview of how the GAP scholarship process works?
Yes, so our GAP scholarship kind of came to be when we started thinking about workforce and thinking about families who have left the workforce in the last 2 years, or just have left the workforce based on childcare issues. And so our GAP scholarship really does look at trying to help a family who doesn't typically qualify for our Best Beginning Scholarship subsidy, which has a pretty low income guideline. And so we're looking at helping those families that kind of fit in that gap, specifically to why it's called the GAP scholarship. And there is a 3-month tiered scholarship. So basically what it looks at is it looks at your full childcare bill for the first month. We will help you pay that, then 60%, then 30%. And the idea is that we're hoping to help get those families back on their feet, like you heard in one of our testimonials, but back on their feet to be able to be sustainable in the workforce and be able to pay for childcare costs after that. Eventually, I think it would be our main goal to be able to fund a little bit longer than that. But right now, just with funding limitations and things like that, the 3 months is kind of where we're at. And we did go with a state median income instead of looking at federal poverty, which is what our current Best Beginning Scholarship subsidy looks at. And on our website, there is lots of information about the GAP scholarship, and you can kind of dive deeper into some of the eligibility criteria.
Perfect, thank you. There was also one more that came through the chat. It kind of revolves around employer care. So what are some ways that employers can support their staff childcare needs?
Employers can do a lot of things. So as you heard in my presentation today, just by having family-friendly practices that allow, infants to come to work, or events that children are able to attend, those are little things, flexible work schedules, all of those types of things, all the way up to providing some subsidies or some financial help. Currently, Child Care Connections provides a dependent care program that helps pay for some of the cost of childcare. So those are another option. And then, of course, the very top tier is really looking at that on-site childcare or providing slot care, which we are super happy to talk to anyone about that is interested in learning more about that. We're working on a lot of supplemental materials, resources. We've worked with a lot of partnering organizations and businesses that are doing employer supported to learn more about how to move that needle and help employers really support their families. So.
Perfect. Then we have Deanna from the Montana PBS. She says that she loves the testimonial stated in how easy of a process it is to apply for the GAP scholarship. And she wanted to know, can you give us a quick how-to and how it works?
Oh yeah, so it took, I will say it took some time at Child Care Connections to try to figure out a process that was going to be beneficial for both us and the provider and the family. And basically we do take pretty much the work out of the family's hands. So the family gets to apply. Once they are awarded, we send them a letter letting them know they're awarded and what amount they will be awarded for. In the back end, we are communicating with providers to figure out what the monthly tuition is for that family, what that might look like. We get W-9s from providers. We do all of that sort of legwork for the families. So basically, once the family is awarded, we do most of that correspondence with providers, and we pay them directly with that GAP scholarship. So whether it's a licensed child care provider or a nanny per se, we work it out specifically with the person providing the child care. So very minimal work on the family's end. We just need to communicate with the families regularly. We also ask that they meet with our family engagement coordinator, Sarah Peterson, to talk about just some family resources and how to be successful and sustainable in raising young children. So we hope that it's been an easy process, and we continue to learn as it goes.
And then you probably saw Jamie Hazel just ask, can the Best Beginning Scholarship application become as simple to apply for as a GAP scholarship?
That is a big question. Right now, there are some efforts with the Child Care Resource and Referral agencies, such as Child Care Connection, to provide some feedback on ways that we can help make that process a little bit easier. But of course, it is a state subsidy. And so a lot of those documents are kind of out of our hands as far as what we have control over or what we can help change. But we are currently advocating for some clarifications within the applications that might make it a little bit more helpful for families. So we're working on it, but we're not quite there yet.
Okay, so we have one more. We'll go with Jamie's again. Could WIC and Best Beginnings partners like SNAP and LIEAP in terms of eligibility determination?
I know there's a lot of conversations in the works on that, and I don't have a statement at this point about that, but it's definitely something that has been talked about. So if there's anything that comes out, we can definitely share that with the public.
Okay. And then we have another one is, where can we find more information about advocating for childcare?
There's lots of ways to find information. We obviously have several social media posts that we put out of ways to engage in this conversation. There are obviously ways to communicate with legislators and things like that. As we get a little bit closer to the legislative session, we will have a live page on our website that's kind of tracking all of the legislative bills and things that are affecting childcare and early childhood. We are very communicative about things that come out and definitely try to send out any information that we have when we get it. But definitely cccmontana.org will have that public policy page up so that you can start tracking some of the childcare initiatives.
Okay, we have one other question. Other than the GAP scholarship, what other programs does CCC have, and how do they help providers and families?
We do a lot of supports for families and providers. So just with our, I'll do with childcare providers first. So we provide a lot of on-site technical assistance, coaching, mentoring with childcare providers on a one-on-one or a group basis based on their needs around trying to just help them improve the quality of care that they're providing and enhance those services to families. We provide professional development opportunities for childcare providers, and we also have some financial assistance programming for childcare providers that is funded through the state, which we are always looking to raise some more funds to be able to support them monetarily as well. And then with families, we provide a referral service. So if families are looking for childcare, we help them navigate the system and try to find openings in their area and give them the questions to ask, the right questions to ask, and try to help them find the best fit for their families, as well as our family engagement correspondence with Sarah Peterson in our office and many of our eligibility specialists. We really just try to get parents to the best supports and the resources that they might need. So we spend quite a bit of time on the phone with clients trying to navigate the resources that are available within our communities, as well as we have some Spanish speaking folks here at CCC. So we have been really supporting our Spanish speaking population recently in qualifying for the scholarship, accessing resources in our communities. So the list kind of goes on and on, but pretty much if there is a question or a concern from a provider, they come to us and we help them, or we at least get them to the right person to help them. But we help a lot with childcare licensing and things like that too. So we do a lot. And on our website, you can kind of see a list of some of the services that we offer. Anything else? Okay. Well, obviously, if there's any questions or things that you would like to talk about, you can always give me a call at CCC. And yeah, we're just so thankful for you all being here. And please, again, check out our auction online. Feel free to donate through our website. We are really looking to expand these GAP scholarship programs and really hope to broaden kind of the reach for those GAP scholarships. So We really hope to see some support from you all, and definitely anytime you want to communicate about how to move the needle in early childhood, we're here for you. So thank you again, and have a great Thursday.